Hey guys, so I was trying to figure out how I can walk you through everything that we kind of need to cover and figure out for our physics lessons. And the easiest way I figured to start now is to walk through a few of the items from the pretest that I had you take and give some little tips and tricks for how to make sure you are getting the right answers. So, as I go through this, I would like for you to write down the problems that we do and then follow along with the steps. You will have a short quiz that is posted to Classroom with very similar problems. And I just need to kind of make sure that we are all on the same page when it comes to a couple of these skills. We're not going to touch trig just yet because we're going to do a whole different lesson on trig later on. But let's get going on this. So these first few problems, I don't expect you to do any of this by hand, obviously, but we need to be smart about how we tell our calculator to do it. So if you don't have a graphing calculator, you really have to do a lot of work for it because it's not smart enough to figure out exactly what you're doing. So you have to remember that you need to group things together really well. So for this first one, I can do 8.3 squared, do enter, and then times the cosine of 60. Oops. And it'll give me the right answer. You have to remember a couple things. You have to remember that your calculator is in degrees and make sure that you're trying to do enter after each step. Otherwise, what it might do is actually associate your cosine of 60 with your exponent. Now, it won't on these TIs, but if you have a different calculator, that is actually always a problem that some people have had in the past. And we're not going to worry too much about significant figures just yet, but we will later on. So you have to remember, again, for this, that we have to group these things together and tell the calculator the order of operations we want it to do. So sine of 45 times our 3.2. Then you need to press enter so that you can get an answer for the entire top divided by the cosine of 15. So remember that you are always working on telling the calculator exactly how you want things to go. Now, when we come down to these rearranging problems, this is going to be a huge portion of physics. So if you struggle with this, please just let me know and I can try to get you some references or some practice that we can do. But there are a couple big problems that I saw with these. So the first thing is you have to remember that you're doing like a reverse PEMDAS. So that's your order of operations. Normally you would go first with the parentheses exponent, then multiplication and division are grouped together, and addition and subtraction are grouped together, and you go from left to right. Now we're trying to do it backwards, so we're trying to start with anything that's separate and completely move away. So I'm undoing everything that I want to do. I make sure that I remember that this top part is grouped together. So the first step is to multiply everything by b over here. And then I get a, b. You can put the multiplication sign if you want. We're going to be using x as a variable very often. So if you do want to put a multiplication sign in there, put a dot, please, instead of writing a xb, because then it'll get really confusing down the road. And then that's going to equal our y minus x. Now I have to get my y alone, so I add my x to both sides. So you have ab plus x equals y. And then boxing in answers is always good. Makes everyone's life easier. Now, there were some really interesting things happening over here with how we were solving for this equation. And this is actually a distance formula that we will be using. So the first step, because I'm solving for y, is I'm going to take this whole chunk here at the back end and undo it. So I'm going to take everything that's there as a group because it's all multiplied together. So then I have d plus 0.5 at squared equals y times t. Then to undo that multiplication, I divide by t, but we cannot reduce this t with this t because this whole idea is one phrase. So you can't separate just the t's out. So your end answer is 0.5 at squared over t equals y. Oxygen. Now this one tripped up quite a few people. So remember, we're just solving for a single y, not y squared. So I can do this in a couple ways. I'm going to go ahead and just undo my positive x squared here. So I'm going to subtract my x squared. So I have a minus x squared equals negative y squared. Then I'm going to flip the sign on everything because I want my y to be positive. Now, you have to remember that what you do to one whole side, you do to the other. So what we're going to do here is this whole side is squared. So we're going to take the square root, but we have to put this together as a phrase. So we are going to have y, because we square rooted this, equals the whole square root of negative a plus x squared. You cannot do the square root of negative a plus the square root of x squared, or just x, because you can't break that phrase up once it's all together. Now we're going to go ahead and skip this graph and also the quadratic formula for now, because we'll be going through those a little bit later when we hit more on those parabolas. And when we come back here, we will talk trig really in depth later, but I just want to remind everybody that SOHCAHTOA is your friend. Now you will have your equation sheets. I thought I had one handy. Hold on. So you'll have actually 3 equation sheets for all the equations for the entire unit, or the entire year, sorry. So you will see that we're going to start off with kinematics. That's the first lessons that we're doing. But there are also an entire set of math formulas that gives you some of the trig that we're going to be doing. Down here, though, it does not specifically say SOHCAHTOA unless you are reading these guys. So we still have to know how to use them. And we'll go through that in detail as we hit those practice problems in class. When it comes to the compass, everyone pretty much got it right. You never eat soggy worms or waffles or whatever you want that starts with W. And you start with the first direction because that's going to be telling you the primary area. So you go north and then about 20 degrees east. It says you're going to need a protractor for this class, but you will be supplied one if you ever need one. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy one. You can get them at the dollar store, I think, in a 2-pack if you want. And then it says draw an arrow from the center of the compass that points 30 degrees west of south. So you're going to start out south and then go 30 degrees west, which is just a slightly more steep angle in the opposite direction. Then down here, I think we all got this right, which is really nice. We've got 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. 1 year is 365 days. If you want to get technical, it's actually 365 and a quarter because that's why we have leap year, but we're just going to round to 365. And then a kilometer is 1,000 meters. Let me double check. So you guys will also be getting a metric prefixes chart on your sheet that'll tell you all those prefixes, so you just have to know how to use them. All right, so that is a quick run through. There will be some more problems on your quiz on rearranging equations to solve for y, just so we can make sure that we're keeping things grouped together in the right way, and then making sure that we're also inputting phrases into our calculator correctly. So please take your time when you're doing those, and if you have any problems, let me know.